Future Queen consort Camilla. She's given a rare interview about her life with Prince Charles and how she has learned to cope with criticism after decades in the spotlight.
Camilla has just been banned for life from Prince William's children, and it happened in public, at a royal event, in front of guests, aides, and extended family. No warning, no second chances. Just 5 words that shattered the carefully controlled peace inside the palace. "You're banned from my children." It wasn't a whisper. It wasn't a private scolding behind closed doors. This time, William didn't hold back, because it wasn't about politics or press coverage or royal protocol. It was about Charlotte. The moment started quietly. Charlotte stepping away from the ballroom crowd, Camilla pulling her aside. No one noticed at first, but minutes later, the child came back, crying, eyes red, face flushed, clinging to her father. William's attention snapped. And then everything changed. He walked straight up to Camilla. No handlers, no palace filters, just a father protecting his daughter. Insiders say he spoke through clenched teeth, loud enough for people nearby to hear. He reminded Camilla, brutally and directly, that she was not their grandmother, that she had no right to speak to Charlotte that way, and from this moment forward, she was no longer welcome around his children. Camilla tried to hold her composure, but her face said everything. The room froze. Catherine stepped in to de-escalate, gently guiding William away. But the damage was done. Camilla didn't leave the event. She didn't run. She stayed. But those who saw her said it was like watching a porcelain doll crack in real time. The question now isn't just what happened between Camilla and Charlotte. The real question is, why did William snap like that? What happened behind the scenes to push the future king to cut ties with the woman who shares his father's throne? And can Camilla recover from a royal fracture this personal? It was supposed to be a polished royal gathering, champagne flutes, velvet gowns, whispered laughter echoing off palace walls. But somewhere between the orchestral music and quiet diplomacy, something cracked, and it started with Camilla pulling Princess Charlotte aside. At first, no one noticed. The room was full, the adults were distracted, and Charlotte had simply wandered a few steps from her mother. Camilla, ever watchful and eager to assert her role as step-grandmother, reportedly took that as an opportunity. She called the young princess over, and in doing so, made a grave mistake. According to insiders, Camilla didn't pull her aside for a friendly chat. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't checking in on her step-granddaughter. She was correcting her, sharply. The issue? Charlotte, by Camilla's standards, had not been composed enough. She'd been walking too freely around the ballroom, drifting from one end to the other like a curious child. Because that's what she is, a child. But Camilla didn't see it that way. Her voice rose, her tone cut, and whatever she said left a mark. Charlotte returned moments later with her head bowed and tears streaking her cheeks. Her poise, the calm, collected demeanor the world often praised her for, was gone. And that said everything. This wasn't a dramatic tantrum or a spoiled royal acting out. This was a well-mannered young girl who had been emotionally rattled by someone she's expected to show respect to. To anyone else, it might have looked like an awkward moment. But to William, it was a trigger, a warning shot that something had gone horribly wrong. Camilla had always had a complicated relationship with William's children. While she tried to blend into the family and earn their trust, her methods were often out of sync with the more hands-on, emotionally present parenting style of William and Catherine. What Camilla considered discipline, William saw as control. What Camilla called propriety, Catherine often saw as outdated rigidity. So when Charlotte showed up crying, William didn't just see a child upset, he saw a boundary crossed. It wasn't about protocol, it wasn't about rank, it was about family, his family. And in that moment, the future King of England wasn't thinking about optics. He wasn't thinking about the monarchy. He was thinking about his daughter. That small window of time, from the moment Charlotte stepped away to the second she clung to her father, changed everything. The party carried on, music resumed, but there was an unspoken shift in the air. And Camilla, perhaps unaware of just how far she'd gone, returned to her conversation group as if nothing had happened. But inside William, the fuse had been lit. William didn't yell. He didn't need to. His anger came in tight sentences and clipped words, the kind of fury that doesn't need volume because every syllable lands like a hammer. He walked across the ballroom with purpose, with Charlotte beside him, her small fingers still clinging to his hand. Camilla, surrounded by guests and sipping from a crystal flute, didn't see him at first, but when she did, her expression shifted just slightly. A half-second of recognition, and then the reckoning arrived. William pulled her aside, not far, just enough to be out of earshot from most guests, but close enough for some to witness. He didn't bother lowering his voice completely. There was no attempt to mask the confrontation. He wasn't there to negotiate. He was there to draw a line. According to one source, the first thing William said was, "You are banned from my children." Just like that. No lead-up, no explanation. A sentence sharp enough to cut through years of uncomfortable coexistence. He reminded Camilla that she was not their grandmother, that she was only married to their grandfather, that her authority stopped the moment it touched his daughter's well-being. Camilla didn't interrupt, she didn't argue, but the color in her face changed, and her fingers tensed around the stem of her glass. She was composed, but shaken. This wasn't a private family scuffle. This was a very public crack in the royal facade. What most people don't realize is that William's fury has a long memory. He's known for being measured in public, but behind closed doors, his anger can linger. Catherine knows this well. She was already walking toward him when the tension peaked. She placed a steady hand on his shoulder, anchoring him, softening the moment. And just like that, he turned away from Camilla, gathered Charlotte, and walked out. Guests noticed the chill. Conversations quieted. Camilla remained, holding her pose, but insiders said her eyes flicked constantly to the exit. No one dared ask what had happened out loud, but the whispers started before dessert was even served. A senior royal had just been banned by another senior royal, and not for politics, not for press, but for hurting a child. That's what made it different. That's what made it irreversible. This wasn't an argument that could be smoothed over in the press. This was personal, and it played out in front of an audience that would never forget it. The message was clear. William may be the heir, but first and foremost, he is a father, and he had just chosen his daughter over palace peace. For years, Camilla was the royal family's shadow, barely visible, cautiously positioned, forever adjusting her image. She knew what the public thought of her. She knew what Diana had said, and she knew the title of the other woman would follow her like perfume she couldn't wash off. But Camilla wasn't careless. She was calculated, and the plan was clear. Stay quiet, stay loyal, and slowly rewrite the story. She didn't rush into marriage with Charles. She waited. She let time soften the narrative, let Diana's legacy settle. When she finally did marry the future king in 2005, it wasn't a grand affair. It was restrained, almost apologetic, a civil ceremony, a muted blessing from the queen. The message was simple. She could be accepted, but never adored. Still, Camilla worked. Behind the scenes, she supported Charles's causes. She embraced the crown's quieter duties. She smiled at events. She showed up. Slowly, the media turned. Headlines stopped referring to her as the homewrecker. Instead, they called her dependable, loyal, even funny. Over the years, her presence became less controversial. And then, shockingly, it became expected. When Queen Elizabeth II gave her blessing for Camilla to be named Queen Consort, it felt like the final stamp of approval, not just from the institution, but from history itself. She had made it. She had turned the tide. Even William, over time, seemed to relent. After Harry's exit, Camilla and William were seen coordinating royal events together. They stood beside one another, shared polite laughter. There were photos, rare ones, of them smiling genuinely. Insiders whispered that William respected her now, that the past had been buried for the sake of the crown. But if that redemption was real, it was also fragile, and Camilla just broke it. The confrontation with Charlotte wasn't just a breach of boundaries, it was a reminder, a sharp, sudden flashback to the woman who once dismissed Diana. The woman who had watched a family fall apart and managed to walk away from it looking pristine. To the public, it was confusing. Wasn't she the grandmother figure now? The queen consort who stood by King Charles during illness? The one who had finally earned her seat at the table. But to William, the illusion snapped. No title, no charity, no palace approval could erase the moment his daughter walked away in tears. And no PR strategy could protect Camilla from what came next. In a family constantly under the microscope, Princess Charlotte has grown up balancing grace and pressure, like she was born for it. And in many ways, she was. From the moment she was introduced to the world on the hospital steps, camera flashes have followed her every move. But unlike most children her age, Charlotte learned early how to carry herself, not like royalty, but like someone who understood what was expected of her. She isn't just the spare. She's the center, the quiet glue between George and Louis, the one who doesn't make noise but notices everything. Whether it's reminding her younger brother to bow during a funeral procession or gently lowering his hand during a parade when he waves a little too enthusiastically, Charlotte has played her part with instinctive awareness. She isn't loud, she isn't dramatic, she is steady, and that steadiness has made her a favorite among royal watchers, staff, and even her great-grandmother, the late Queen Elizabeth II. In public, she's all composure. In private, she's reportedly quick-witted, curious, and fiercely protective of her siblings. Charlotte isn't just a child born into royalty, she's a child being raised to understand the emotional weight of it. And that's what made the altercation with Camilla so jarring. This wasn't a tantrum in the middle of a state dinner. Charlotte wasn't disrupting protocol or acting unruly. She was simply moving through the ballroom, doing what most children do, observing, navigating. Whatever Camilla saw in that moment wasn't disrespect, it was a projection. Sources say Camilla approached Charlotte in a tone far more scolding than nurturing. The criticism was sharp, allegedly accusing the young princess of being uncomposed and embarrassing. But to those who've watched Charlotte grow into her role, the idea that she was the one acting improperly doesn't hold up. William knew it, Catherine knew it, and when Charlotte returned in tears, it wasn't the reaction of a misbehaving child. It was the heartbreak of a child who had been unfairly reprimanded by someone she was told to respect. And this time, her quiet restraint didn't protect her. For William, the image of his daughter, so composed, so careful, reduced to tears by the woman who had once caused his own mother so much pain, was too much. It wasn't just about parenting, it was about legacy, lineage, loyalty. Charlotte didn't shout, she didn't fight back, she did what she's always done. She held her head high and walked straight to her father. Prince William has spent his life balancing two roles, heir to the throne and son of the woman the monarchy never truly protected. But when it comes to his own children, the scales tip hard and fast. He's not interested in being a symbol when his daughter's dignity is on the line. And the moment Charlotte came running to him, red-eyed and rattled, the royal mask fell away. In that split second, he wasn't thinking about public image or royal order. He wasn't the Duke of Cambridge or the future king. He was just a father, a furious, deeply protective father. For William, that moment was decades in the making. He has never fully spoken about what it was like to grow up under the weight of royal expectation while watching his mother get crushed by it. But you can see it in how he lives now. He doesn't just resent the institution's failures, he remembers them. Diana was chaste, isolated, silenced. Her boundaries were ignored. Her pain was dismissed. And at the center of that betrayal was one name that never seemed to go away: Camilla. So when William made room for Camilla in his adult life, it wasn't out of affection, it was restraint, for the sake of Charles, for the sake of appearances, for the sake of peace. But that peace was conditional, and Camilla always knew it. There was one rule she was never allowed to break: do not overstep when it comes to my children. And that night, she broke it. Charlotte wasn't being rude. She wasn't causing a scene. She was, as always, navigating a royal event with the quiet confidence she's become known for. But Camilla, perhaps feeling the weight of her role or mistaking control for authority, singled her out. And William didn't just see his daughter in tears. He saw history repeating itself, the image of Diana being undermined, corrected, shut down. It came roaring back. Only this time, it wasn't a vulnerable wife. It was his child. He didn't care that people were watching. He didn't care if it leaked to the press. In that moment, he made a declaration not just to Camilla, but to the entire institution. You do not touch what I've built. Not with your voice, not with your rules, not with your history. Because William's entire mission has been to raise children who are safe in the very system that failed him, to create a version of royalty that doesn't devour its own. And Camilla, with a few cutting words, threatened that balance. She didn't just insult a child, she triggered a father. And in William's world, that's the one line you never ever cross. The Wales household doesn't run on royal tradition. It runs on rhythm, routine, and real parenting. Behind palace gates, William and Catherine have quietly rewritten the script for what raising future monarchs is supposed to look like. No distant nannies calling the shots. No cold corridors filled with silence. Just two parents doing the school run, kneeling to listen at eye level, and making sure their children come first. It's not glamorous. It's not performative. It's deliberate. From day one, William and Catherine made the decision to be present, not in a ceremonial sense, but in the small, everyday ways that build trust. They make breakfast, they help with homework, they show up at drop-offs and clap at school plays. George, Charlotte, and Louis don't live behind velvet ropes. They live in a home that feels, by royal standards, almost normal. Inside their household, the children have chores. They help lay the table. They clean up after themselves. There's structure, but not stiffness. Warmth, but not indulgence. Their world is full of expectations, but not entitlements. Catherine, shaped by her own close-knit, grounded upbringing, has brought a gentle but firm parenting philosophy into the royal fold. She believes in connection over control. There are no raised voices, no sharp rebukes. Emotions are acknowledged. Boundaries are respected. She listens when they're upset. She teaches by example. And William? He backs her completely. Because he knows what it's like to grow up with silence. He remembers missing his parents. Not because they were gone, but because they were always just out of reach. Duty first, emotion later. Not in this home. The Wales children are being raised to understand both privilege and responsibility. But more importantly, they're being raised to feel safe, understood, seen. It's why Charlotte can sit calmly at state events and still hold her brother's hand. Why George can walk into Westminster Abbey and carry himself like a young royal without losing the softness in his face. So when Camilla scolded Charlotte, it didn't just bruise the child, it insulted the foundation William and Catherine have spent years building. It wasn't about royal rules. It was about their rules, the ones that matter most. Because when you build a family on presence, protection becomes instinct. And that night, when William stood between his daughter and the woman who crossed a line, he wasn't wearing the crown. He was wearing the weight of every promise he made to never let history repeat itself. Catherine didn't raise her voice. She didn't confront Camilla in front of the guests. But make no mistake, she was furious. And in her silence, there was a kind of royal power that even titles couldn't override. When Charlotte came to her with red-rimmed eyes, Catherine didn't ask what happened. She already knew. She saw it in her daughter's face, the stiffness in her body, the way her fingers curled into her own sleeve. Charlotte, always so composed, had been shaken, and Catherine's instincts flared. Catherine's parenting philosophy had always revolved around one word: protection. Not from the media, not from the pressure of royal life, she knew that was inevitable, but protection from coldness, from emotional harm, from the kind of legacy that left wounds instead of wisdom. So watching Camilla reduce her daughter to tears, that was unforgivable. There are rules in royal life, and then there are unwritten rules, those sacred lines drawn between public duty and private heart. Catherine had abided by both. She'd kept the peace with Camilla for years, even when the history between them loomed like a shadow in family photographs. She had stood by William, smiled beside Camilla, even laughed when protocol demanded it. But that day, it all changed. Catherine may not have said it aloud, but her mind was made up. Camilla would never again have unchecked access to her children. Not while she was alive, not after what she'd seen. It wasn't about pride, it wasn't about past wounds. It was about a promise, a silent one made the day she became a mother, that her children would never grow up in the cold, lonely silence she saw in William's eyes when he spoke of his own childhood. And in that moment, with Charlotte's head resting against her, Catherine knew the royal dynamics had shifted forever. Camilla hadn't just crossed a line with Charlotte. She had crossed a line with the future queen. Camilla stayed. That alone said everything. She didn't leave the event early. She didn't make a scene. She straightened her shoulders, forced a smile, and pretended nothing had happened. But beneath the surface, the tension was suffocating. People stopped making eye contact. Aides exchanged glances. Her inner circle pulled in tighter, and the queen consort, once the picture of confidence, suddenly looked like a woman standing on eggshells, because she wasn't just being watched by the public anymore. She was being watched by the family. The fallout started quietly, subtle cancellations, shifts in schedules. Camilla, who once stood beside William at high-level events, was no longer on the same itinerary. There were no photographs with Charlotte, no sightings with the children. Even joint appearances with Catherine felt noticeably absent. It didn't take long for royal insiders to put the pieces together. William hadn't just lost his temper, he'd drawn a line. And in royal circles, lines like that are dangerous. The palace will never issue a statement. That's not how the firm operates. Silence is their sharpest weapon, and right now, that silence is deafening. Camilla has reportedly tried to explain herself behind closed doors, that it was a misunderstanding, that she didn't raise her voice, that Charlotte overreacted. But the problem isn't just what she said. It's that she said it to the wrong child, at the wrong moment, after a lifetime of tension. This wasn't a PR nightmare. It was a personal fracture, the kind that doesn't make headlines, but rewrites the power dynamic behind every closed royal door. Camilla knows what that means. Her title remains intact. She'll still walk beside King Charles, wave from balconies, smile at foreign diplomats. But inside the family, she's isolated, not exiled, not removed, but locked out of the one connection that legitimized her position in the future of the monarchy, William's household. Because if the queen consort isn't trusted around the heir's children, what does that say about her place in the next reign? Camilla worked 2 decades to reshape her legacy, to go from the mistress to Her Majesty. But the thing about redemption is this: you don't get to rewrite the past and then repeat it. Not with William, not with Charlotte, and not with a family still healing from wounds she helped create. She stayed at the event that night, but something left with William, and it might never return. Forgiveness in the royal family is rarely spoken aloud. It happens in glances, in holiday invitations, in who's seated where at the dinner table. And sometimes it doesn't happen at all. Camilla knows this. For years, she slowly earned her way back into public favor. Not because people forgot the past, but because she made sure never to repeat it. She smiled, she supported, she stayed in the background when necessary, and stepped forward only when the queen herself extended her hand. Becoming queen consort wasn't just a title, it was the final stage of a comeback no one thought possible. But one moment, one misjudged conversation with the wrong child might have undone it all. Because this isn't just about protocol, this is personal. Charlotte isn't just any royal. She's the emotional heart of the Wales family, the bridge between her brothers, the quiet compass in public appearances. She's the one who never needs reminders, who gently nudges her siblings back in line with the kind of maturity that can't be taught. She represents everything William and Catherine have worked to protect. Camilla's mistake wasn't that she scolded a child. It was that she misread Charlotte and underestimated the consequences of doing so. To the outside world, it may seem minor, a misunderstanding, a tense exchange at a formal gathering. But to William, it was the final straw, not just because of what was said, but because of who said it. from a woman who had already caused enough damage, from a woman he had tried, quietly and painfully, to make peace with. Now the palace faces a silent standoff. There's no apology being made public, no olive branch extended, at least not yet. Camilla remains outwardly composed, but behind the curtain, she's reportedly rattled. And she should be, because forgiveness isn't guaranteed. Not when the wound reopens a story the monarchy spent decades trying to move past. Can William eventually soften? Perhaps. He's not unkind, but he is protective. And this time, his loyalty doesn't belong to the firm. It belongs to his daughter, the one who didn't cry in public, the one who didn't speak out, the one who simply looked up at her father and was heard. That's what Camilla failed to understand. And that's what makes this different. This time, forgiveness won't come in whispers. It'll come, if at all, on William's terms, and not a moment sooner. Camilla still holds the title. She still attends royal events. She still smiles for photographers, walks beside the king, and sits at the center of official portraits. But something has shifted. Something the cameras can't catch, but the palace insiders feel. She has lost access to the future. Because in the royal world, power isn't just about where you sit today, it's about who invites you in tomorrow. And when the heir to the throne bans you from his children, you are no longer at the center of the story. You're adjacent, peripheral, tolerated, but no longer trusted. Camilla spent decades fighting for legitimacy, from mistress to consort to queen. She endured years of public backlash, was blamed for the collapse of Charles and Diana's marriage, and became one of the most controversial figures in royal history. But she persisted, she rebranded, she waited, and eventually, she earned her seat beside the king. But William never forgot. He may have smiled in public, played the part, and posed for family photos. But the resentment ran deep, and it resurfaced with force the moment Camilla made his daughter cry. That single event, so brief, so seemingly small, ripped the veneer off years of careful diplomacy. It reminded everyone that beneath the royal titles are people, a father, a daughter, a fracture. William's message was not just for Camilla, it was for the entire institution. He drew a boundary. He said, "My family comes first. My children are off limits, and no amount of titles or proximity to power gives you the right to cross them." Now, Camilla faces a new reality. She may still wear the crown, but it's become ceremonial. Her influence has narrowed. The next generation, George, Charlotte, and Louis, will grow up without her involvement. They'll remember the woman their father kept at a distance, the queen they never truly knew. For a monarchy built on lineage, legacy, and generational strength, this is no small matter. If the queen is not embraced by the heirs, her reign is spiritually disconnected from the future of the crown. Camilla's role is now defined by presence, not connection. She will be seen, but not felt. Present at the table, but not shaping its future. And William? He's made his stance clear. His loyalty is not blind. His forgiveness is not automatic. His children's well-being comes before royal appearances, before protocol, before peace. Camilla may still walk the palace halls, but the rooms that matter most, the ones filled with laughter, childhood, and legacy, are no longer hers to enter. Because when a queen is no longer welcome by the future king's family, she isn't really queen, she's just someone wearing the crown. What happened between Camilla and Charlotte wasn't just a family misunderstanding. It was a crack in the monarchy's image of unity. A single moment behind palace walls, with no cameras and no press, pulled back the curtain on years of buried tension. And in doing so, it revealed a truth that no title can cover. Trust, once broken, rarely heals in silence. Camilla may continue her royal duties, but the emotional distance from William, and now Catherine, has changed the atmosphere forever. The queen may hold her position beside the king, but not in the hearts of the heirs. And in a monarchy built on bloodlines and legacy, that absence speaks volumes. As the royal family presents a polished front to the world, one can't help but wonder, behind the gloved waves and gilded doors, what other truths remain unspoken? What scars are being passed down in silence? Because in the end, the most powerful moments in royal history don't happen on balconies. They happen in whispers, in tears, in choices made quietly for the sake of a child. If you found this story compelling, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss the royal truths they don't want you to hear. Don't want you to hear. Don't want you to hear.